All right, it's about time to start. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, people from Kazakhstan, India, and hopefully some other parts of the world as well. My name is Dinara. Today I represent Al Farabi Knowledge Center at BCPD AIFC. It's a organization in Kazakhstan, in Nur-Sultan, that handles the lifelong learning and professional development of people, especially in the financial industry. So today we have gathered to discuss and listen and to gain knowledge about this very important topic, the future of jobs post-COVID-19. Our speaker today, he's not new to us. He has already presented a webinar a few weeks, maybe a couple months ago, also in our platform. And I know that many people from the audience really liked it and have requested to Uday to talk more about the specific side of the future of jobs. So we are all in this situation where the crisis have inflicted a great damage to the workplace. And before we start, let me briefly introduce our speaker today, Uday Nanda. He is a Chief Learning Officer from UpSkilledd. It's an education and training startup in India from New Delhi. Besides, he also is a reputable speaker from platforms like TED that we all know, UNESCO, also various platforms in Russia as well as Korea. Also, besides the startup experience, Uday also has worked as an ex-strategy consultant and has a master's degree in technology from IIT Mumbai. So he definitely has both the educational and work experience to tell us more about what the future might await for us, what kind of implications and consequences this whole situation might prepare for us. And the floor is yours. Thank you again for joining us. And yes, so let's hear from you. What is the future holds for us post COVID-19?
Thanks, Dinara, for the lovely introduction. I think it's a great initiative that you're organizing a series of knowledge seminars during this time when people were not really investing time into their learning and their skills. I think it's a time which has really helped people to internalize and reflect and give some time to different areas and open windows of opportunities when it comes to their life or their jobs per se. So I just want to talk a bit about our journey. What was the motivation behind UpSkilledd, and the story was very simple. So when I graduated from college, I joined a management consulting firm, and the workplace experience was very challenging, and the kind of training and the kind of mentorship that you would get given the paucity of time was always limited. So that's when I realized at a very early time that all forms of skills or knowledge, for that matter, have an expiry date, right? And unless you engage yourself in in different learning activities, be it informal interactions with your colleagues, be it social networks, be it online courses, the right set of resources is really important. And discovery of that was always a challenge, even in a large organization like mine. Like, it's one of the leading organizations. So that's when the seed came into my mind and one of my colleagues, when we started out, that if such a big organization is having a problem in terms of the continuous learning opportunities, then I'm very much sure that people who are from different industries and different maybe not that great companies would be facing similar challenges. The second big challenge was that if you undergo any training program today, right? Be it a webinar, you read a content blog. Uh, a week or a month later, you remember only a very tiny fraction of what you've learned, right? So that's where the reinforcement and exposure to that content over time is really critical, and the role of platforms there can really play a big role. The third thing was, most content is kind of difficult to consume. Like there is a pain associated with it. People really don't look forward to it. So there are two broad approaches that people have taken. One is going towards the entertainment or the gaming side, try and convert learning into something which is more entertaining. We took a slightly different approach, which was to try and make it more bite-sized and consumable, something which people can, like a dose of learning that people can take, on a daily basis. Uh, so that's how the two approaches vary. We also call it micro learning. The third thing that we recently kind of realized that we need to, so we design training programs for different organizations in India and Southeast Asia primarily. And we were recently in Russia is where we met the team from AIFC. So across our experience of working in different industries, uh, what we felt was that one missing piece is kind of connecting people to new work opportunities. Like it's something like, okay, if like Uber, right? They improved the utilization of cars all over the world, right? Uh, but there's another startup which probably built a strong battery that would make the car run faster. So that a similar analogy here, that we were kind of building a battery for humans, but we are not done anything for improving the utilization or improving the opportunities for people. So that's something that we've piloted recently with a few universities. We've built a remote working platform for a couple of universities, and we are piloting it out. We are hopeful that we'll be able to launch it for the attendees and the larger public in the week 10 days that are supposed to come. Now, just talking about what so COVID-19, right? It has taken the world by a storm. uh, World Bank has predicted that the world economy is contracted by 5.2%. So there is no doubt that job losses are the new norm, right? Job losses in the medium term, in the medium run, are definitely a reality, and we can't shy away from it. Uh, However, like over the course of the presentation, I'll probably talk more about it. But if there are some opportunities or some disruptions that have come in, there are definitely some new avenues that have opened up, and these are across different industries. It's just about tapping into those and building your skills for them. So this chart just talks about the different drivers that have caused the decrease in demand of goods and services, the contraction in supplies, the mismatch in skills, demand and supply. So all this has caused a whole lot of a mess in terms of the livelihood and jobs, and hence this is something that academia, corporates, governments, even as people who aspire need to rethink and work on it. Now, here's a very famous quote from John Welch, who's one of the leading CEOs of General Electric, where he says that if the rate of change on the outside is greater than the rate of change inside, the end is very much near, right? So he was talking about his organization, but I think what this means, you'll probably know in a couple of slides, that the jobs are changing since the start of the century, right? So bank tellers, travel agents, different jobs which existed in the past have typists. They have come and they've vanished overnight, or over a brief transition. But more changes have occurred in one decade than the entire century, right? So this 2010 onwards, the rise of the Amazons, the Ubers, the Airbnbs, then different sectors which kind of grew around them. A lot of changes were brought about by technology, which impacted these changes in the past 1 decade. But the reality is that more changes have occurred in the past 3 months than in the entire decade, right? So let that sink in, because we are just, we don't get to see the data at a very large scale. No organization has that kind of an exposure or scale that they can come up with easy, insights on the data. But if you just move around, talk to each other, like there are two categories. One, whose lives have been completely disrupted, and second, who are still in job, but the way they work has completely transformed. So what exactly is the future of work and what it holds, right? So here are some predictions that we've tried to come up with based on our discussions with different industry stakeholders and reports that we've read. So the first thing that is really important when you talk about any changes in the workplace is the business model. Now, business model is typically how a company or an industry earns money, right? That is very simply the business model. And why is it so important, right? So I just want to bring out maybe three, companies which were pioneers, and maybe just as a background, you'll get an idea why the business model is really important to have in mind, even when you're keeping your career, if you're planning your career in the long run. So one is Kodak, right? So Kodak so when digital cameras came out, Kodak was vanished in a span of two to 3 years. They were out of the game and they filed for bankruptcy. Now the reason was not that they did not build a digital camera, right? The reason was that their business model was designed around the films and the development of films, which we all have, the 90s and the 80s and the 70s kids have gone through. And they could not just shift that model over a span of 2 to 3 years. So all their infrastructure, all their existing ecosystem became useless overnight. So that's where, so that's one example. Second is Zara, right? The famous women clothing brand. So what happened when Zara was coming on the scene? The Spain was a big apparel industry, and low cost labor markets like Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, and a few other economies, when they started mushrooming, the European mills started suffering, right? So that's where Zara thought that, okay, we should kind of, change our strategy. What they did was they got into the fast fashion business model, right? What does that mean? So they kept their eyes on the consumer, right? On the trends that were happening on social media. Any new trend that came out, that they observed with women, they decided to ship it out, to develop their product over a span of 4 to 6 weeks and get it out in the market. And they kept changing their line of, product at such a fast rate that none of the other competitors could kind of catch up with them. Third is Norton, right? Norton antivirus. A lot of you have heard about it. So in the early 1990s, when the software industry was really in US, it was really booming, and they were supplying to all over the world. What happened was that earlier the software would go as a lump sum amount. Like there was a big upfront fee that the Microsofts and the hardware companies of the world would pay for, and then they would distribute it through their devices to the people, right? So that's where Norton came in, and they said that, hey, let's do software as a service, like as a subscription, rather than an upfront fee. So that made software accessible to the last mile, to households, to shops, to medium businesses, and that completely disrupted the whole game. So the larger message is that business model disruptions can transform any industry, and can shape the future of skills and the career that people are really going in for. So it's really important to know that. Now with COVID, uh, one so there are three themes that I see would be pretty exciting to watch out for. One is the first category is platforms or creator economy, right? So Amazon, we know they're a mammoth, and now they're becoming even more big. Amazon and Alibaba, similar platform firms. There are now there's a whole bunch of zero code platforms like Shopify. So if you want to build any, you want to get online, you want to take your business online, you want to start selling on social media, you want to create your own brand, you want to put out your own content and sell stuff around it, any service or any product, like so there are platforms that can allow you to single-handedly get things in place. Do not need to have a specialized coder or a designer for that. Canva is a brilliant tool for designing stuff. Maybe people can check it out. Second is transformation experiences, right? So we've all heard that, okay, Starbucks coffee, $20 coffee, is it worth it? Is it not? Uh, so Starbucks says that it's the experience. It is not the cup of coffee that they're charging for, right? What I see and the shift that will happen with people as they've slowed down in life, people would pay for transformational experiences, right? So something that transforms their life. So there's this really interesting festival that takes place in the US. It's called the Burning Man Festival. And it's a city which has been created ground up by the local people, and people coming in from, creators and creative people coming in from all over the place. And they spend a good week, 10 days, whatever. They have different formats. And that experience kind of, just transforms them for life. Cure Fit, for those of us from India, uh, uh, the startup Cure Fit, which was into gymming and freestyle workouts. It was not the freestyle workouts that was, okay. That was the how they were doing it different. Definitely, that was a value. But the reason people really, cared about it, that it would transform the way you look, that it would transform your fitness. Third is circular economy, right? So uh, with COVID, people have realized that resources and the stuff that we use, there is it's not an endless mine that we can keep pulling out plastic, using it and throwing it everywhere. So there are these interesting business models that are coming around upcycling. Uh, so I know a startup that does that picks up carbon waste from different industries, from households, and they use it to make ink that can be used to, in different industries again. Here's another one. It's called the Plastic Bank. This is again something where people can get their plastic recycled, and they get a certain incentive for it. This is the cover of a book that became like a New York bestseller, if I'm not wrong. And this was, so as you can see, this is showing that a machine or a robot is essentially taking over the job or the livelihood of a human, right? Now, I don't know how many of you believe this will happen. I would love to, see a show of hands, or maybe you can type into the box if you believe that this is what the future holds. If the way things are going, and maybe I can tell you more trends around it that can help you decide. So it's a fact that the manufacturing industry, even the service industry, so restaurants, are having robotic, like these are all pilots which are slowly becoming big, and there are chains which are deploying it at a scale. uh, Robotic processes automation. So chatbots, a lot of the customer service roles, are kind of being offloaded. So it doesn't mean that, uh, the like it will completely disseminate, it will completely uh, remove the people from that place, but the ratio of humans to machines will heavily shift in the favor of machines. But having said that, uh, there is another fact is that with technology and machines also comes scale. So uh, when the note telling machines, the machines that count your notes in banks, they came out in the 1990s. In India, I know, I don't know where they came in the rest of the world. There was a lot of talk that people will lose their jobs, because the bankers earlier, a lot of them were, their role was just to count notes in the banks, right? But in reality, uh, today we know that the jobs in banks have actually grown, 50 times of what it was in the 90s. The reason is that with technology, it brought scale, and scale along with diversity of skills. So earlier, if they were doing a mundane or repetitive job, now they will do a much more valuable thing which utilizes their human skills, and the fact, because machines, and of course the capacity of machines is also growing, like they are, from doing repetitive stuff, they are able to do slightly more sophisticated stuff. But that is how mankind and jobs and industries will evolve, right? So I feel that if we plan this transition in the right way, it's nothing to worry about. And if at all, entrepreneurship for all of you or people who are still out there is always an option. Uh, Another big trend is workplace flexibility. So remote working, gig workforce. So gig workforce is essentially uh, a person working, having different jobs, not just one job or assignment. Even employers are becoming open to this trend. They are allowing people to sort of move out of their, their traditional 9 to 5 jobs and invest their time in diverse projects, so that the skills that they learn in these diverse projects, they can apply back to their day job. 4-day work week, so born to chill. Uh, being It's been experimented and it's being run for a very long time in countries, Nordic countries like Sweden, Finland. Recently, IBM Japan launched it, and productivity really grew by 30%. So I feel these flexibility trends will also really impact how the jobs will transform in the future. Now, one trend which is kind of on bit on the negative side, at least in the near term, is that the marginalized groups or communities which have traditionally not been represented as well as the mainstream groups will kind of suffer a bit more, um, suppression from a policy stand viewpoint. Like that's the initial sentiment that we are seeing, because the management is getting into survival mode. So now whatever commitments they had towards, say, women or people with disabilities, or with any other people who are underrepresented in the workforce, in the near term their initiatives will kind of suffer. So I hope all the companies and institutes that are on this call can do their bit to reverse that. Now, I'll be getting into the different streams or professions, or the sectors that will be emerging in the times to come. But this is like a good uh, quote that I found, somewhere in a blog, and this, this is something which is not just for entrepreneurs or the people who are leading a certain organization, but everyone in their own space, if they can apply this kind of a thinking. So design, because today, to design solutions, or to come up with any solution in your workplace, there are a lot of different uh, inputs, and a lot of variables which have to be thought through and worked in the form of ideas, in the form of brainstorming, and putting them all together and coming up with a design process. So one can maybe look up design thinking or systems thinking. Like, these are two keywords which I can recommend people to look up later. Um, and venturer, because it's important to take risks where things are so grim already. Now, here are some professions that we found out, and we validated. Don't look at the numbers, I would say. They're all estimates. So in a macro, or in your space or your geography, these numbers will not really make a lot of sense. But just in order of the hot careers and sectors that are growing: data and AI, engineering and cloud computing, people and culture. I would actually place it above data and AI, because this is a starting point for any company, any organization, any institute for that matter. Product development, sales, marketing, and content. And then we have something which we call the care economy, or the COVID economy. Like, with COVID, people have suddenly become really conscious of their health and hygiene. And that has really started a whole bunch of products, a whole bunch of services, which are there for the times to come. And then we have the green economy, which is again the environment focused jobs, which will also be, which it's not like they have just come on the scene after COVID, but they're definitely being accelerated due to COVID. There are a few more sectors that I want to maybe outline. Uh, One is, so e-events, like, so the whole entertainment, hospitality, and tourism industry has gone down. So e-events or e-experiences, or e-leisure activities, anything on those lines, uh, is something that is really going to grow. Existing organizations will leverage it. New initiatives will come out. Uh, Drop shipping. So basically, anyone would be able to sell stuff online. So it's just about creating your own brand, having the right targeting, sourcing a product from somewhere, or maybe, so I know, so the whole direct to consumer brand space is really coming up very fast. Uh, and people are sort of building brands from their home, because the trust factor of people has, earlier people would only trust the big brands, but with, realizing the whole loopholes in the entire world, people have become really open to trying out home brands, for that matter. And automobile sector, I know there are a few people joining in from automobile, from the sports industry. I would say their industries are somewhat, the trends are not very clear what is going to happen, because with automobile you have the whole public uh, transport and e-mobility space, which is also playing in as a factor, and people's propensity to buy has gone down. So I don't have any predictions for these two industries. Happy to hear. Please post in more, sectors if you know of any, and we'll be happy to maybe put it out to everyone by the end of it. These are some, the skill clusters or the mix. Uh, you can kind of ignore the data out here. I think the only thing I would like to show you here is the different categories of skills that you can cluster your career into. One is business skills, which are more around, business 101, like MBA, demand, supply, marketing, how commercials work, how cost works, economies of scale, and so on. Soft skills, I like to call them power skills, like they're not soft anymore. And let me quickly uh, maybe just, okay, I'll show it to you at the end of it. Like, I have a short blog that I had written, and I had outlined the soft skill, the power skills in that. Industry specialized, industry focused skills, tech basic skills, and tech disruptive skills. So whatever skills are till now that have become mainstream, and whatever the ones that are there that are of the future. So that's how one can categorize their skills into. So now I'll just run through these 6 to 8 categories that I have in the different domains, and kind of outline, what are the different skills that you can take a picture if it's relevant to your thing, and we can have, I'm happy to have a discussion with you after the session on how upskilled can help you, in your journey to build these skills in the long run. So HR management. So HR as a function has been very compliance driven. We all have interacted with HR in our firms, and we feel that, okay, they are only involved for recruitment, getting our documents in place, compliances, maybe a bit of training here and there. But the role of HR is now slowly becoming very strategic, and they're getting a voice on the board of companies. Introduction, so people analytics. So how can companies use the data that people generate? So people leave out a digital footprint when they work anywhere, right? They use their system, they use their performance softwares, they use lead management softwares, depending on different design software. So whatever digital footprints they are leaving, maybe you have heard on a customer service call, they're like, this call may be used for internal quality and training purposes. But as a matter of fact, those calls are never really used at a scale, right? They are only used piecemeal, just to pick up a few instances. But being able to decipher insights from it, coming up with actionable insights, taking decisions on where do you have people, how do you, what are the skills that they're lacking, how do you sort of plug the gaps. Uh, Other ones are fairly, some things that are fairly straightforward. Recruitment, hiring, and onboarding. Onboarding, again, uh, it's going to become a longish process rather than a 1 or 2 day thing. Uh, Being able to manage employee compensation. So people have realized that a very fixed or rigid compensation system is a lose-lose situation for everyone. And especially in a pandemic kind of a situation, they realize that they need to come up with new models of compensation for their people. And yeah, so these are some of the skills that uh, highlighted: employee L&D, leadership, uh, foreign languages. So HR is having to deal with people from all over the world. So teams are becoming global now with remote working. Uh, we've received a lot of requests from US, from Southeast Asia, wherein they want to have a small team here in India, right? So that's where their whole foreign language demand also comes in. Second is marketing, sales, and content. So digital marketing, social media, um, product marketing, uh, influencer marketing is something which is really strong. So there's this really interesting stat. Okay, uh, there's a TikTok influencer in India. He's called Mr. Faizu. Okay, and he has, so in India, for those of you who don't know, Bollywood and cricket are the two biggest entertainment industries, and all superstars come in from these two areas, right? Now this Mr. Faizu, when you pick up his stats, and I was talking to a friend who works for a very large social media influencer agency, and he showed me data that the engagement rates of Shah Rukh Khan, Salman Khan, Virat Kohli, and Ranveer Singh, all of them combined, is less than Mr. Faizu on Instagram and these different platforms, right? So that's how marketing is being redefined. I want to call them like 2020s will be the age of digital superstars. So moms, couples, people who work at farms, they will sort of reach out to people and they will influence how products and services get sold. So that's what probably the point number 4 means, viral marketing and how to craft contagious content, where you start with the people first and not the product. SEO, digital marketing becomes really big because that's especially during the lockdown, the amount of content that people are putting online, it is just becoming a sea. It is a sea of content, and it is becoming more and more difficult to discover the right set of content that can inspire and influence people. Product development, so from a software angle and even from a physical product or a hardware angle, is something which is really going to grow big. So how can people use development tools? How can people sort of put those products out there, and how do people interact with these products? Agile development, incorporating AI into those, because a lot of the products that are coming up are coming in for convenience, and having, if a thing has a mind of its own, say a smart lamp or a smart car or something that kind of has its own value, and using it for the right purpose, right? So now people have realized the difference between pains, needs, and wants, right? So that's where the whole product angle comes in. These are some of the skills. I don't want to run through each of them. It would be a good idea to just take a screenshot for those of you. We will also share the presentation with you later on. Green professions. So solar, wind energy, water resource management, all these were anyway, were coming up pretty well. But what people have realized is the need for, the urgency to work on these. CSR budgets have kind of gone up. Governments have started investing more, managing health and safety standards, equipment inventory, landfill gas collection. So, and a lot of the role of working on this is around policy and the data bit. How can we use the data out there to make the whole process really efficient and effective for everyone. Data and AI affecting every practice and industry. I know a few data scientists that are on the call as well, so might be good to hear from them if they agree with this, if they have any inputs. Yeah, I think from this slide I would just add this. Engineering and cloud computing is another. So all your software testing, development life cycles, project management. So product management is a role which is really coming up very well in India. So product manager is a role that is like an interface between your software team and the commercial side. So because as we know that both of them, they speak very different language, and that is where the product manager plays in a big role to drive the product objectives and the vision. And lastly, the care professions. I know, like in the lockdown alone, I have received 10 really solid requests from different companies who want to invest in the well-being of their employees, right? So they might not have necessarily invested a lot in the training their people on their skills or knowledge, but they are straight away leapfrogging to the well-being of their people. Uh, so meditation, kindness, happiness, yoga, stuff like that. Uh, that's one trend that I'm seeing. Then you have this whole informatics where people can get access to doctors and information sitting at home. So I know for a fact that during COVID, the the biggest challenge has been, and WHO has even given a name for it. It's an infodemic. Like there's a pandemic, there's also an infodemic. So misinformation, and fake news has caused a separate pandemic of its own, right? So how can individuals and even socially responsible companies, because like there was a survey that I was reading wherein people trust the communication during COVID. People trusted the communication from their employees, from their employer, more than they trusted it from the government or from their local authorities or from WHO itself. So they think like their employer's word is the most official one and most informed one. So socially responsible brands can play a big role, and even individual experts. Uh, yeah, I think these broadly these things and vital signs. So understanding what the body is telling us. So how can there are these companies who are working on how can we cultivate and pick up data from our own body and kind of process it and use it, so that because in most cases and most conditions the problem is that of timing. Like if you get to know of the problem in time, then you can really avoid a lot of hassle of treatment, money, and complications that come because people simply just waste time and they're not informed about it. uh, Now the time frame to impact these industries and business models, because as I said, these are very macro trends and these apply to India as well as to Kazakhstan, uh, Russia. Like these are very global trends, and given the nature of the blanketing situation we are in, it is definitely relevant to all these geographies. Uh, so we'll have to sensitize it according to our own regions. Like I was told that Kazakhstan is having, so some of the industries that are really active are oil and gas, agriculture, and uh, there's one more that was there, telecom, right? So as I see, uh, like these were the traditional industries that was state owned, and now the economy is slowly opening up to technology, to ed tech, to agri tech, optimizing different processes using the new tools that are out there. So that kind of brings its own set of implications for the different geographies. Um, but of course, as a matter of fact, this has caused a lot of skill shortages. Like there is a lot of money available in different economies to work on different problems, but the skills at a large scale is what is lacking in different countries. So being able to work to build them is what will be critical at every country level. Now these are some trends. I don't want to read out all of them to you, but basically these are some trends that have already been the impact has already been felt to a large extent, and there are some that are becoming very very mainstream. And the one that maybe I've not talked about till now would be uh, one is the longevity and aging societies. So our average life, average life duration has increased a lot. So there's this whole economy of 50 plus people who have a passion to do different things and contribute to the society and economy, and that's something which has even during the pandemic, now people have realized that we need to tap into all sections of the society to solve any big problem that happens to mankind. uh, Another one would be advanced materials, biotechnology, and genomics. um, Autonomous transport is one. So I know for a fact that if you are in the logistics industry, uh, forklift operators are going out of jobs. A lot of checking that takes place, wherein you check your stock, is being done through technology. So I think these were the two trends that I had not talked about early. So they are the ones that are worth mentioning. Just want to take us, a step back and just ask you if we're towards the end anyway. So uh, these are some action points that I could think of, which are very broad, yet act as a starting point uh, for different companies and different people, whatever stage of your career you are in. And happy to now take up questions if there are any. I think we had received a few in the beginning uh, of the seminar as well. So Dinara, if you could.
Sure. In terms of questions, yeah, first of all, I encourage everyone to keep adding questions to our chat box. So is this it? Is this what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was very interesting. Very interesting. I think the keyword is plan, because we have heard different complications, and you have touched upon some damages that the current situation and overall the automation have created for us. But the keyword is really plan, and thank you for bringing out different not even scenarios, but different skill sets that people can learn, that people can train in them and also within their organizations. So before our audience will ask a question, I have a question. You have shared with us all this valuable information, and do we divide between emerging and non-emerging economies? Can we say that emerging economies might experience a bit of a different um, trends, which they will, and what do you, in your opinion, are these trends?
Yeah. So see, of course, like we have to watch out. Like there was a time where people could continue their life in one career or one industry their whole life, but it's a fact that people will have to shift their professions typically 4 to 5 times in their lifetime, like very easily. That is how much the shift would be. So if you are not having an eye, and if you're not watching out for the emerging trends, then
Mm-hmm.
you're clearly just blinded by your own environment, and you are just waiting for a pandemic to hit you. And sort of, so you need to have a backup plan or a backup skills, which could be ancillary to your industry. Say if you are if you're doing traditional marketing, like you're into advertising, and you're doing your traditional newspaper, TV, and all of that, and you have absolutely not worked on the social media front, which is like a mammoth now. So that's like a recipe for disaster, because the day you have some major downsizing in the traditional industries, you really don't have anything to bank upon. So it could be an ancillary industry, it could be a completely unrelated industry, and that's the beauty of this economy. Like till 2020, I can tell you for a fact that I was solely focused on my space, like my startup, my space, just trying to build stuff around it, right? But in 2020, I kind of, decided that I will also experiment with something which is, completely different. Like it should definitely not be, uh, you know, related to my job. There should be no intersection with it, right? So
Mhm.
I kind of worked on a couple of different projects, something in the public health space, something in the social networking space. So that kind of kept my mind fresh, gave me a different perspective, and I could apply those learnings to my own job. So tomorrow, if something was to happen to this industry, like a big Google taking over the whole world, and the whole edtech space gets taken over by someone, we are, I still have a life, right? So
Mm.
that's the idea.
Okay, that makes sense. We have a first question from our chat box, and
I'll just add the emerging thing. It's always
mhm,
a good idea to look outside your country. Like, look outside your country, see what's happening, try and connect the dots, because you always see what's coming, right? If someone had taken the China stats around January seriously, and I'm
mhm,
sure even with the pandemic, and I'm sure some people did take it seriously, they definitely prepared well for it, and they have reaped the benefits, right? So that's just one example, but it's always a good idea to look outside your immediate geography, and try and connect the dots and predict the future for yourself. Don't just wait for the future to come to you.
mhm. Thank you. One of the questions previously asked was, what is your opinion about the jobs that are most demanded, let's say in the next 5 years, and the least demanded in the same time frame?
Sure. So most is what I covered. These the clusters that I ran through, all
Mm-hmm.
these are very much hot, and they are the ones that will drive the economies of the future. I also mentioned some that were not here, but we are seeing some, like, there's not a lot of data supporting it, but definitely the intuition says that they will be there. The dying industries, some obvious industries are hospitality, tourism, entertainment has, so theaters, sports events that take place outside, concerts. So if anyone is in the music industry, they would realize that now they have to get in onto digital. So
Mm-hmm.
I think more than the answer, customer service is really going through a lot of churn right now. Like, if they would earlier have 100 people, now they're having 50, and half the stuff is being done by chatbots or voice bots. And stuff like logistics, manufacturing. So industrial robots are becoming very common. In the banking space, there are these there are some processes which humans have been doing for the longest time, and slowly it's called robotic processes automation, RPA, if you want to look it up.
Mm-hmm.
So these are some trends. Now the answer doesn't lie in which exactly are those uh, you know industries or functions that have gone down, because honestly there's not a lot of data right now. The data is really just pouring in, but I would just, if you're mindful of the trends, you would know. And the adoption is also different in different companies. So even if like a country might be very gung-ho about a particular technology or a trend, or but if a company has their business model around a particular thing, they will not adopt it for the next 5 years. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my suggestion to the people. Just watch out for the trends and try and apply them to your own workplace. We'll try and put something together, something which is more macro once. So we got to know the background of people who have attended this webinar. So we'll try and put some more data together relevant to your backgrounds.
Mm-hmm. All right. Also, another question was about partnerships between academia and business. Many countries focus on partnering those to kind of create a matching between industry and academia.
Mhm.
And since people cannot perform different internships physically now, and what they could do before, what, in your opinion, is the future of strategic partnerships between academia, business, industry, and international organizations, and so on?
Right, right. So one clear takeaway is that any academia who is running a program in isolation, and by isolation I mean not having a workplace component to it, wherein people either get live experience of projects or they actually go to the workplace once things unlock and people start going into offices. Uh, the students need to have real-time exposure or apprenticeship experiences, for any academic program to work. Like any academic program which lacks that work module or that work aspect, uh, is 50% of the game is lost, right? Second
Mm-hmm.
is, once people go in the workplace, uh, being able to connect them to uh, uh, learning opportunities on the go, right? So they probably go 4 times or three times a day. They go to the workplace, and twice a day they attend classes. There are different models that work in different industries and different geographies, but being able to connect them through a platform, having an accountability, what are they learning, what are the skills that they are lacking, uh, you know how can we connect them to mentorship opportunities, how can we deliver some bite-sized content to them while they are on the bus on the way to their workplace. So all that is something which is going to be very critical, and to ensure that everything is structured and effective.
Mm-hmm.
These
Into
are, yeah, these are two broad things. And even stuff like maybe running joint online programs, which academia and industry, if they can design with help from, because the industry is so no one is ahead of the other, right? So a lot of people say that industry is faster to take, adopt the best practices,
mm-hmm.
and academia kind of follows. But that's not fully true, because the R&D is a lot of times driven by the academia.
Mm-hmm.
So it's both have their own strengths and weaknesses. It's just about matching the two, and using the right talent and making space. So give time to your employees. Like, you are not really, so companies are not giving their people the time to work on such initiatives which are more long term focused. They are more focused about the burning issues at hand, like their sales targets, like their whatever their company KPIs are.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There's also another question that's pretty similar to what you just shared. Daisy in the chat box is asking, how much of a skill is needed to start doing a job, and which platforms offer work without experience? So this question is probably relevant for the fresh graduates, for younger people.
Sorry, let me just read it out. How
Mm-hmm.
much of a skill is needed to start doing job, and which platforms offer work without experience? So there are jobs which you can get without experience, for sure. Uh, it is about first doing something. So firstly, building an online brand for yourself, right? So LinkedIn is a great starting point. Uh, Instagram, if you're a creator, if you want to put out your, Twitter is one place where you can, there are a whole bunch of conversations happening on different experience, on different topics. There are threads running. All you need to do is, put yourself out there, jump into conversations, try and connect and try and feel the pulse of the conversation, and try and add value to people without asking for anything, right? So for example, if so I can give you an example from my own self. So there was a guy I used to follow back in university days. A very famous guy. He used to talk about different technology trends and so on. And he used to put out these Twitter threads, and I compiled them in a graphical form, right? Uh, I had some free time on me, so I created an infographic kind of a thing, and I gave it to him, right? So that immediately caught his eye, and we struck a conversation, and he told me about some of the projects he was working on. So that's how simple humans are, right? If you connect with them, you will get the opportunities. It is not about online platforms, or it is not about traditional recruitment practices. uh, you can just you don't need to run after the big organizations anymore. They will run after you if you have a brand online.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. Everything is changing, and also the way you present yourself is changes in the light of technology. Uh, I would like to show you the next question. You probably can see it yourself.
Hi,
It's from
hi
Christina.
Christina. Yeah.
Yeah, hi
So,
Christina.
hey, Christina. Skills can be worked on reading, web classes, online training. What would you say certificates are important? Do you have the platform with the most read platform to read? I'm not sure if I got the last bit. See, now certificates are important because I would say credentials. I would rephrase it as credentials are important, and the provider who you take it from, like if you are taking it from someone who's more credible, someone who's recognized by different employers, that would be ideal, because that's how simple it is, right? If you apply for a job and they've heard of say Dan Schwabel or any famous guy, if they've heard of him and you've undergone a course. So there are two categories. One is our institutional uh, providers, and second are now individuals who are giving out uh, their expertise and their knowledge to the world. Now we are working on something. The problem with certificates is that a lot of times they are hard to verify, right? And if I'm an employer and I see that a person has undergone a certain course, and this is the title, these are the modules, but I have no way for me to map that, okay, these are my job requirements, this is the certificate that this guy has, what percentage is an overlap, right? So there is no data driven platform around it, and there is no way for me to digitally verify uh, those kind of things. So we are working on something. It's a fairly uh, complex technology on the back end, but on the front it is very simple. Like different course providers can issue digital credentials to people, and employers can simply verify and see in a very intuitive way which are those, how much is the overlap and what are the gaps.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. I will be asking couple more questions, I think, before we finish. So if anyone would like another question, please feel free to send it to us. So the question that I would like to ask is, there are industries that are very niche, for example, environment or development work. Do you have your thoughts about the trends and the disruptions that can touch those niche kind of industries?
Yeah. So development sector. So I'm involved with Rotary International
Mm-hmm.
since 5 years now. Before that, I was a campaign leader for Teach for India. It is like the Indian chapter of Teach for America, which essentially helps students from low-income schools connect with really high-quality teachers. Uh, so the development sector has been a very parallel sector, which has, had its own set of agendas, its own set of KPIs, and, you know, of course, the funding comes in from different, from the industry a lot of times. But still, it has been very parallel, and there has been very less uh, overlap with the traditional industries. So I would say this is one thing that now people have realized that development is a very mainstream social development, and NGOs and foundations. These all are very important, and because corporations mostly care about profit, and a lot of them are also doing good work in development, but the scale, the percentage is very low. New trends that are coming up in development, as I said, information, verification is becoming one really big thing. How, so the traditional themes were education, healthcare, peace, the marginal communities, rural development. These were some of the standard uh, themes that were out there. But now people are realizing that it's just any walk of life which is under invested in can be a part of the development sector.
Mm-hmm.
Environment, I think I talked about some of the circular economy and the startups that are doing some good work on it. So broadly that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I might go ahead and ask.
Yeah, there's one question coming in from Shashank. By the way, Shashank is from Teach for India, and he runs his own, he's from the development sector and running something for improving the scientific temper of kids in India. So he's asking, would micro courses be the preferred mode of learning over full-time traditional courses? So I would maybe put them in two different buckets. One is your formal learning, or your traditional courses, which will take a while for the mindset to shift. Although I would say there is nothing stopping them from completely vanishing, but I feel they are there to stay. Like it's the same thing. Kodak, right? They had film ecosystem and infrastructure, uh, and same as with schools and universities. They have set up so many. There are so many uh, buildings and infrastructure around it that it is not viable for them to completely stop that kind of a model. And also it is important for people to go in there, interact with people, have that physical experience. So for sure they will be there in the times to come. But the other category is informal learning, so which is kind of 70 to 80% of the game, because that is something which is long run and translates into long term transformation. So you undergo any course, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 3 years, uh, that's not the end. You can't front load education like we did in the past, like school, college, and work. That's not how it is. Learning is a part of now everyday life.
And my last question would be probably about soft/power skills.
Yes.
People have asked previously about how does leadership change this time?
Mm-hmm.
So what does it take to become a leader, to train yourself as a leader? So what are your thoughts on this?
Right. Just give me a second. I have a. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So as I said, soft skills, are not soft anymore, and they are actually more powerful than any of the hard skills, because they let you adapt to different situations and functions. First is, so I've just outlined a set of skills very quickly. I'll run through them. Metacognition. So one is, this is the process of thinking, like why,
Mm-hmm.
how do people think, and being mindful about it, uh, and using neuroscience to kind of influence and make your whatever you learn more and more effective. So this is one skill which is really important. And there are these cognitive science principles which if you are aware about, can help you. I had touched upon them last time in the last webinar, so
Mm-hmm.
that's one. Second is adaptability quotient. So I just used a very simple way to represent it, that in 2000 it was the IQ which was the most important. 2010 people started valuing emotional quotient, or EQ, but 2020 it is the AQ, or the adaptability quotient. How fast are you able to adapt to different situations, and so on. Data fluency. So irrespective of your job profile or your industry, you should be able to interpret, read, and represent data and communicate it to people in the right way. Storytelling, right? So basically making any point using a story. So uh, if you're trying to make a point, try and do that using a story, and people will remember it more, people will get influenced more, and you will be like a better performer than the rest. Writing is again really it's a power skill. uh, you know you can start with journaling your day, to get in the habit of writing. uh, then kind of documenting your workplace experiences. If you're new to the job, you learn something new. If you document it, right, that has its own value. And being able to put your ideas in the right way, this form of communication never grows old. Like, you don't have to have fancy videos or podcasts all the time. Empathy, not going to say a lot, but being, keeping yourself in the shoes of others, and being more human is what sort of sets people apart. And that's the difference between people remembering you for a long time, wanting to work with you. It is not your hard skills or your core competencies which make people work with you, or it's these skills that really help. Creativity, and lastly, anti-fragility. So anti-fragility means, uh, so there's one that fragile means that if there is any shock or there is any disorder, uh, a person gets damaged or a thing gets damaged. Robust means that, or resilience means that you will remain the same. Anti-fragility means that if you have any shock applied on you, you you actually grow more, right? So you come out stronger because it takes you out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this concept is really important. Like, this single concept of anti-fragility, this mindset change, can really be a big difference in two people who have very similar backgrounds in the same work profile, but the other person would just be more successful in the long run.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And you can share the link here in the chat box as well, right?
I will do that
Sure.
right away.
And we will also share the presentation along with the link to the audience, with the audience today. Well, if we don't have any other questions, thank you very much, Uday, for being again this afternoon with us, sharing this valuable information, your thoughts, in this moments of uncertainty. And it's definitely good information to think over the weekend and even beyond. I mean, definitely beyond, to plan and to take action in the near future. So thank you, audience. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, everyone. And this is just the start of a conversation. Please do reach out to me or Dinara for any thoughts that you have, anything, any aha moment that you had during the presentation, and we'll be happy because we have to co-create the future. It is not like I'm having the knowledge from some sources and I'm sharing it with you. It has to be a two-way thing, which will help us for the greater good.
Yes, agree. Well, thank you. Yeah, we'll see you again, both the speaker and the participants, in the near future.
Yep, that's our website. Thank you so much.
Thank you.